Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are unpacking a seriously fascinating philosophical text from 2006 by a thinker named Tao Wan. It proposes a completely wild theory about the fundamental nature of time, reality, and human consciousness. Seriously, if you've ever felt like time was just slipping through your fingers, or if you're curious about the hidden potential of your own mind, you are absolutely going to want to stick around for this.
So, let's start with a question. What exactly connects a lost woodcutter, a missing airliner, and the captain of the Titanic? To pull us right into its core premise, this text kicks off with some incredibly bizarre, seemingly unrelated anecdotes of missing time. It basically asks us to look at world events that completely, utterly defy the ticking clock.
The author lists these supposedly real-world glitches to suggest that time doesn't always move in a straight line. I mean, we're talking about instances like an entire airliner disappearing from radar, only to reappear later with all the passengers' watches running exactly 8 minutes slow. Crazy, right? Or how about a South American couple fainting in their car and miraculously waking up driving on a highway 2,000 kilometers away? Add in near-death experiences, hypnotized subjects suddenly revisiting the past, and that legendary tale of the Titanic captain mysteriously reappearing decades later without having aged a single day.
To kind of anchor this mind-bending concept, we're given this ancient folk tale that illustrates how time might actually progress differently depending on what realm you happen to be in. Basically, a woodcutter heads up into the mountains, gets a bit lost, and stops to watch two old men playing a game of chess. But when he finally heads back home, his town has undergone these earth-shaking changes. Decades have literally passed. His peers? Gone. Only his great-grandchildren are still around. Just a brief little pause for him turned out to be an entire lifetime back on Earth.
Part 1. Vertical versus horizontal time.
Okay, so to explain how these mysteries could actually be possible, the author introduces this really wild metaphysical framework. The idea is that time actually has both verticality and horizontality. Vertical time is just our normal everyday experience, right? The relentless flow from the past to the present and straight into the future. But horizontal time, that is a specific point on that vertical axis where time suddenly loses its future characteristic. You effectively just step right off the vertical axis and hit pause on the clock. And this brings us to what's called horizontal space-time. It's described here as an eternal state. And what's cool is this isn't just pure philosophy. It actually connects to modern science. The text claims this horizontal space-time is exactly what quantum physicists might call parallel worlds, or a 36-dimensional space. It's literally a completely different space-time system running right alongside our own.
Part 2. The refrigerator effect. So, because axes and dimensions can feel incredibly abstract, let's use a super relatable metaphor. Imagine two ripe peaches picked from a tree at the exact same time. Now, the first peach is just left outside on the counter. Within 5 or 6 days, it rots. The second peach, that one gets put in the refrigerator. After those exact same days, it stays completely fresh and new. Well, horizontal time acts exactly like that refrigerator, preserving whatever enters it from the natural vertical decay of the outside world.
So, if we look back at our earlier anomalies, those missing people didn't time travel in some traditional sci-fi sense. According to this philosophy, the woodcutter and the unaged Titanic captain simply slipped into horizontal time. They were kept fresh in that metaphorical fridge while the rest of the world just kept rotting away outside.
And honestly, this isn't just some fairy tale concept. The text argues we are actually utilizing this exact principle right now in modern life. Think about freezing techniques at a sperm bank. Under normal conditions, sperm dies in minutes, maybe even seconds. But when scientists freeze it, the author argues they are instantly bringing it into horizontal time. It's a highly practical, scientific application of this exact theory, allowing vitality to be maintained indefinitely.
But real quick, don't take the freezer metaphor too literally here. The author clarifies that horizontal spacetime is not a cold, frozen wasteland, not at all. It's an eternal state full of life where we can live vigorously. You can sing, dance, age, and love within that space. Yet, whenever you do return to the vertical, real world, you come back at the exact same moment you left, with your original appearance and abilities totally intact.
Part 3. Entering horizontal space-time. Okay, so the big question, how do we actually unlock this eternal state for ourselves? Getting your physical body into horizontal time apparently requires some incredibly rare luck, or what they call opportunity. But don't worry if you don't magically stumble into a time warp. There is supposedly a highly accessible method for the rest of us.
enter the consciousness entry method. The core argument here is pretty straightforward. People are consciousness. Without it, we're just walking corpses, right? Therefore, if you can consciously project your mind into this horizontal space, you have, for all intents and purposes, actually entered it.
So, how is it done? First, you use visualized thinking to vividly imagine a beautiful space, things referred to as high-level life spaces or celestial islands. Second, you explore this realm in your mind with total freedom and joy. Think about your own daydreams for a second. The text asserts that deliberately daydreaming about these beautiful realms triggers a third step, fundamentally altering your physical reality and what it calls your antimatter structure.
To back this up, the author drops a massive, really bold claim. Imagination is not fake. Anything that brings you joy, freedom, and happiness, including your imagination, is not illusory. In fact, reality is the illusion. Think about physical reactions to purely mental stimuli. The author even points to the physical reactions of self-pleasure as proof. Just by vividly imagining things, your facial expressions change, your psychology shifts, and according to this theory, the very structure of your life physically transforms.
Part 4. The Power of Consciousness.
So by mentally stepping into this refrigerator from time to time, the promised outcomes are pretty incredible. Frequent visitors to horizontal time are said to remain relatively healthy, free from disease, and youthful, exactly like that fresh peach in the fridge, while the outside world ages. Furthermore, this practice supposedly prepares your consciousness to adapt to high-level spaces, form actual ties with celestial beings, and eventually move on to live in a higher plane of existence. And here is the text's ultimate takeaway. What kind of consciousness you have dictates exactly what kind of life existence form you have. Don't be fooled by the mundane, everyday reality around you. In those subtle, unnoticeable moments, your mental focus is silently but powerfully dictating the literal state of your physical and spiritual being. Earth-shaking changes happen purely based on what you choose to hold in your mind. The piece ends with this really beautiful traditional proverb. The duck knows first when the spring river is warm, and the willows along the river know when spring comes. The message is pretty clear. The author has only provided the spark to ignite your thinking. He can show you the door to horizontal time, but he can't walk through it for you. You have to jump in, feel the water, and actually experience the mystery for yourself. Which brings us to our final thought. Whether you view this text as literal metaphysics or just a stunningly beautiful metaphor for the incredible power of a positive mindset, it leaves us with a fascinating question. If imagination alters reality, how is your consciousness shaping your world right now? The realms we build in our minds might not just be fantasy, they could be the very architecture of our existence. So take a close look at what you're imagining, because you might just be building your reality. Thanks so much for joining me on this explainer, and keep exploring.